Yes, we're here. We're only 42 minutes late, Griff. That's not too bad.
Not too bad. We'll take
Like,
it.
the Jags game is fairly interesting, so it gives you all a chance to have watched that. We got the film coming. But first, Griffin, what's your favorite holiday movie?
Um, Home Alone. I like
Same.
I like 1 and 2.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Very good film.
good
That's
stuff.
interesting.
How about that?
Wow. We're aligned on holiday films. Right. Now,
Also,
second.
also, I'll say I like the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I have since cooled down on my Tim Allen love, but at the
Hmm.
time when I was little, that really
Yeah,
captured the
you were
holiday spirit for
innocent.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. What were you gonna say
Okay.
though?
Well, second, we have this.
Oh yeah, this thing.
You like this?
Yeah, so Jason, aka Michael Realman, aka Trish Fasson, aka Cheat Hawks, Jason Cheat Hawks,
Hmm.
says this is us getting ready to podcast, and here we are. But it begs the question, Maddie, who is who?
Well, we last time we did something like this was that film Amelie, wasn't it?
Um, yeah,
And I took it very literal, and you went rather abstract with it. So if I'm being literal here, you are blessed with more facial hair ability.
yeah.
However, you do have less hair than me at the moment.
Now, see,
So,
getting abstract though still serves the literal physical world though, because the abstract just unpacks what is literally in front of us and
mm,
puts it into terms that we can understand it.
mm.
And
No,
then
I
you
don't
can,
have a problem with you being abstract. Please, I don't want to
okay,
get that twisted.
so here's what I think, if I may.
Okay, pal.
We've got, I think that the original intention of this painting, I think, is you've got the guy on the right holding, what is that, a like a banner flag. Maybe he's at war. Maybe perhaps he's a
I
noble.
definitely think he is.
He's like a nobleman. I'd say soldier, but he doesn't look like he's in soldier garb. However, he looks like essentially someone engaged in the battle. And then you have a skeleton holding his hand, maybe guiding him toward the battlefield. So perhaps that's death,
Hmm.
guiding him toward the battlefield, aka his death. And he's got a musical instrument. So perhaps the beats of the musical instrument lure him toward the battlefield, and he thinks that he's being taken toward glory and power when really he's just headed toward nothing but death. So
I got that too, just to be clear.
okay, so
Yeah.
me, even though this perception gets thrusted upon me,
Mm.
I'm considered the coper of the two, and you're considered, more bound by fact, logic, and reason.
Do you think?
Perhaps, at least that's what people
Perhaps.
say.
Perhaps. Right.
Because see, I think that I am the super realistic one, right? And that my optimism is not optimism, but in fact is just cold hard facts, reason, and logic. So, but if I'm the coper, I'm holding your hand and I'm asking you to march with me, but really I'm just bringing you down the path of destruction with me. So therefore, I'm
Mm.
skeleton man, and you're the the feudal nobleman holding the banner flag of fact, reason, and logic. So that's what I've got. What do you have?
Definitely a strong anti-war message, right? Which I
Yeah,
think that's good.
yeah, we are anti-war.
Yeah. Um, the lion is kind of English, but there isn't three of them. But I mean, Germany was always warring with like different noble families in what this is 1540. So
SC's Germany, yeah, 1540.
yeah, I don't believe the official title of it is. Apparently, it's Zimmern's Dance of Death.
Okay, Dance of Death, which just sounds like a battle, right?
Yeah, and interesting. This what's that? A lute?
Is that of German origin instrument?
I'm not. I think it's just medieval.
Sure.
The lords and counts of Zimmern made history in the literal and figurative sense, especially in the 16th century. Although politically largely insignificant, the dynasty developed an active activity as chroniclers, builders, collectors, and patrons. Zimmern's culture of representation was formative for large parts of the Swabian nobility in the age of Renaissance and humanism. Even as historians, the counts have left for posterity a comprehensive oeuvre. Who wrote this? A special highlight of the exhibition is the Messkirk altarpiece. Okay, that's not relevant. Yeah, it's just a German noble family in the High Middle Ages to the 16th century. This was shown in an exhibition apparently in Germany. But
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah, very interesting.
So it's about confronting our mortality and all that.
Yeah, I guess. And
Now, to what end though? Is that to disturb us, or is that to make us feel more to seek more appreciation for the
like
time that
more
we do have
right, or maybe more at ease with your fate.
and an inevitable future that we all share?
Mm.
Yeah. Isn't that art though? It's supposed to stir thought and it can be open for interpretation. What's
Oh,
not open for interpretation is who has what gap, baby, because we're talking Seahawks football and run
oh no,
fit.
hold on. In the late Middle Ages, there were illustrated books called Danse Macabre or The Dance of the Deaf, which were used to focus the mind on life's short stretch.
All right.
And this is from one of those books.
Word.
Right. Okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Please tell everyone that we're live and we're about to talk about the Seahawks now. So, but that was very interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So interesting. So let me get back. Right. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's time for us to review the 49ers tape that the Seahawks put together. That game was played exactly last week. This podcast, if you're listening, is obviously out on Friday, but we're recording this live on YouTube on a Thursday night during the Jaguars-Jets game. Griff, Jaguars.
I recognize that it's Jaguar, but I say Jaguar anyway.
Oh, you're a wire? What about
And I'm
Jaguar? You're not a
I'm not
Jaguar?
going to change. Who says Jaguar?
I do.
See, but when you guys do those commercials for the cars,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always some posh English dude who's going Jaguar.
Is he?
Yeah, it's 2-syllable, but you're saying
Are you sure that's not for the American audience? He's just sort of
maybe.
code switching.
Maybe. But see, you guys go 3 syllables though on average.
Oh yeah, big
Jaguar.
big 3-syllable Jaguar. He's got a Jaguar.
What did you call me? And why are you inverting your sentence structure all of a sudden? Or are you Yoda?
Maybe. Okay. So let's start with the defense, because the defense, I think, strangely, there's more room for optimism.
They don't want to hear it, but yeah.
Well, I feel bad because I kind of said that Pete was putting a positive spin on things, and it's just because he's intervened. That was before I watched the tape. That was a bit rash. I should have watched the tape in a bit more detail than my brief skim through. Although this was very reminiscent of a 2021 game plan.
Yeah. All in all, watching this game, I felt like the non-Woods Monet players played the way they needed to, that if they had Woods and Monet, they would have been fine this game. And by fine, I mean like not great results, but not bad results. I feel like they would have kept the yards per carry figure right around, maybe high 3s, 3.678, whatever you want. The 49ers success rate rushing was like ranked only 23rd or 24 of 30 teams this past week. So really it was those explosive runs that got them. And all the runs outside of that, I mean, Seattle took care of business, and no, that's how running efficiency works. It's always explosives that carry it. But there are good running teams that have good success rate and high explosive rates. So when the flip side of it is when you see a team hold a front, hold the opposing offense to a low rushing success rate, it's not hard to fathom there being a lot of good tape. And good tape is process, and process projects forward more than anything else. So the way I feel like now when we say project forward, we only have 3 games left in the playoffs. It might be out of reach, right? So we're kind of talking big picture here with the totality, because like this year wasn't just about this year, it's also about next year. But big picture wise, like I didn't see the wide sweeping concern that I had for a large chunk of the Raiders game in the second half, especially the Panthers game, that I saw this game. It just felt like good team. They really need all hands on deck. They don't have their best nose tackle. Ryan Mona has been up and down, but he's been playing fairly well recently, and him being out really sucks. And all in all, I'd still say he's a fine. And he's your 4th biggest snap getter at defensive line. So like, he doesn't need to be more than that, but he still matters. So
yeah, without Woods out, he'd have been your like 2nd biggest snap getter probably,
right,
against this sort of opposition with the 21 personnel looks.
Right, for sure. So there you have it. That's kind of my top down, 1,000-foot view of this game.
Yeah, agree with what we've said. Where do you want to start on the defense? Do you want to start with the positives or the negatives?
Well, let's go negatives first.
Oh, okay.
So that we can define just like how negative it was, because again, there's kind of despair, I think, following the team right now and the perception of it. And I don't necessarily think that reflects reality precisely. So
yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, but yeah, I think that's fair. So if we just if I try and get my thing on the screen, that would really help. Like, just stay up there. All right, that'll do. Perfect. Right, and then if I so Shanahan called a great game, obviously, but you also had a mix of mistakes. So like the George Kittle double screen and then pop pass up the seam, that's a great play. There's very little you can do about that. However, George Kittle's touchdown to start the second half, that is just a bust. So let's get to that. And I don't know if Seattle's hit a rookie wall necessarily, but I do think rookie mistakes that maybe were even happening earlier in the season but weren't punished for whatever reason, and now like a bigger thing. So if I do, no, not that. If I just get rid of the banner. There we go. If I could zoom in, that'd be great. But anyway, we'll take it. Right, so it was 2nd and 5, and Seattle had been kind of clamping up on defense a bit, which is what made Kittle's touchdown so frustrating. So it was a 21 personnel slot formation, and Shanahan played around with having a receiver either side of a tight end and then receivers away from the tight end a bit to try and mess with Seattle's rules, as he does. But Seattle here should have been in a good position. They adjusted to the slot formation after early struggles by having Ryan Neal run with it, which we'll get to later. And here they just messed up. So they're in cover 3. So.
And it's drop 8, cover 3, right?
Yeah. So Woolen was in a deep third. Diggs was in the post third. Jackson was in a deep third. Bruce Irvin, as Griffin said, it's drop 8. Bruce Irvin was dropping and bashing up the danger man, George Kittle. And then it's basically Nwosu off the opposite edge, dropping into the other flat. Barton in the curl, Brooks in the middle hook, and then Neal in the curl. So they should have had the bodies for this. It's a good play call because maybe they got a tendency from this kind of offset pistol look that it would be pass. But they played drop 8 on a 2nd and 5, which I guess if you get run, it plays out like you're none the wiser. But still, good play call because it blanketed the stuff, or should have done at least. But
and and just really quick, having the eighth extra defender, it helps defend all three levels of the field better on a probably one of the harder down and distances to defend, right? Second and
Yeah.
5, like you said, you can flood the coverage easier. You can get depth in your zone if you play it right and still be sound for the check down. And like drop 8 was a huge part in solving their second down problems last year. Their numbers when dropping 8 versus second and medium versus rushing 4 were profoundly better. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the play call.
Yeah, and if you look at what Drop 8 actually achieved at first, Brock Purdy opened looking for a slant route that they're doing spamming against Mike Jackson after checking the safety rotation. But Nwosu was dropped right underneath that. Shanahan would not have expected that to happen, but because Seattle was dropping A, it was happening. Then Purdy came back. He looked at the Kittle combination and Irvin, and Irvin had bashed that up. It didn't look open at all. So he right now is thinking probably check down at this point. But then he realizes that Woolen's messing up. So Griff, that's just on Woolen, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're dropping 8, you don't need to chase inbreakers that way because you have extra guys to pass back to. So you should be communicating whatever their version of an undercall is, and then just go, zoning off, and especially immediately get eyes on too, because the wheel route he wouldn't have to worry about because Neal's got it. You've got Brooks pushing with the strong 3 and the strong 4. And then Barton is doing his job. He's stacking his zone in the weak hook, pushing to the strong hook, looking for anything coming up on him. Like they're perfect. They're perfectly fine here. The call would have done what it was supposed to do if Woolen had just zoned off like he should have. Like Shanahan calls this play, the last person he's thinking the ball goes to is Kittle. Because like that's an alert. Like that's almost, you want Kittle to occupy that corner to get something in the underneath to come up, right?
Yeah, Kittle's the danger man who, against this coverage look, is just occupying the deep coverage to create more room for the check down in the flat. But as you can see, Woolen, maybe it's the way that Purdy looks to his left almost, and his feet stop. He's got a weird kind of pocket presence. But Woolen just thinks he's seen something and he just collapses down on the in route. Like at first, I wondered if he was playing it like it was a vertical stem of a crossing route, but I don't even think it's that. I think he just tried to make a play which wasn't there and then left Kittle open. And obviously, he didn't mean to do this. He was beating himself up afterwards. This kind of stuff happens,
Right.
And it's good that he cared so much. And then Diggs took a horrid angle. Part of the reason he'll have done this, I think, is because earlier in the game, on that Kittle pop pass touchdown, Diggs tried to break down near foot, near shoulder, and Kittle just took it down the middle on him, which was a lot like surprising acceleration. So I think Diggs overestimated the burst here. You can see he's over pursued. He's not on the near hip, but he is also trying to stop him getting to the end zone. But he should be more like, it's not perfect. Like football, open field pursuit's hard, but he should have been like 1 yard further back to stay on this near hip, but he's sort of over pursued and he's given up this inside lane, and also whiffed, which obviously doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an arm tackle because he over pursued, not any shoulder getting involved, and something Kittle was able to slip, and then Cody bad open field pursuit as well.
Does the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, same exact thing.
Yeah.
But here it's from the end zone. Unfortunate.
Yep.
But and the kind of thing that in this close game, it really, you can't give teams this. And like a lot of the contrast between the 49ers and Seattle was illustrative, I think, of the different timelines of these teams. But like this is, again, like San Francisco don't make these mistakes. They've got a bit more experience on their defense.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to live with it, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, last year they didn't make these mistakes against San Francisco.
No.
They also had, not that Al Woods affected that play. They also had Al Woods last year though too, in this game in Mona, but nonetheless.
True. So let's talk about another coverage play which was a bit shaky, but it's difficult. So this is what we say when this is kind of a beta for Seattle. So it was 12:43 in the second quarter, and technically another explosive play. So Seattle, for a large portion of this game, played around with an underfront. So you have your 5 technique or your 4 technique kind of player here. To the strong side, you have a guy down at the line of scrimmage setting the edge. Then you have the nose tackle to the strong side shaded. Then you have a 3 technique weak. And then you have a down at the line of scrimmage player as well. And they played around with playing under weak rotated cover 3, or like they used to back in the day, or they kept their safety high and they played that under 6 or under quarter half, where Neil would, the backside safety would be in a half, Diggs would be in a quarter, the front side corner would be in a quarter, and the weak side corner would be in a cloud technique. Now, this is similar in the like their base approach against 21 personnel used to be tight will 6. It's also it's the same call as what they played against the Raiders. They just messed it up because they were focused too much on Adams and they had some really poor execution up front. The good news is they played it really well against the run for the majority of this game, so they seem to have fixed that. But here, this is a great beta because, as we've seen from Seattle and as I play it through, when you run a shallow crosser to the cover 4 side of play action, or even an intermediate crosser of play action, it just breaks the defensive shell. Because it requires someone to fall off and it just takes too long. It asks a lot of Jordan Brooks. The spacing is just off. And last year, Seattle ran quarter half, but they didn't get this kind of look that often. They also didn't play quarter half that often to 21 personnel. So they were unlikely to get the hard play action with the fullback away, really messing it up for Jordan Brooks. Like, I don't even know, Griff, who you'd attribute this onto.
Because they're playing quarters to Mike Jackson's side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on some level, I think they want Quandre to nail down because we've seen that, but the way it plays out, it's hard, especially with the route, the way it stems underneath. It stems underneath the will as opposed to over.
Yeah. And one thing that the 49ers is great on is if you're a linebacker and you're trying to key like the play, like you're looking for high hat, low hat. Look how low these hats are. They're selling run really well. Yeah. They're all low. You think this is run. Look at this fullback. He's coming out. He's looking like he's going to block. So if you're Brooks, technically you kind of got to fit in this A gap to the right. So that's a long fit. He was on the center of the field. The A gap's on the far hash, basically.
Now, see, if they're gapped out, though, the weak hook defender likely stays in that C gap. So that means he's got more cushion to leverage the crosser, to fall over and leverage the crosser. So that's the other thing. That's the other problem with this.
Yeah, this is the weakness of the quarter half approach.
And the premise behind it is to leverage the inbreakers and the crossing routes better. So I don't know. I do wonder if it's if they would rather have Diggs nailing down, because like what's the premise behind playing cover 3 buzz against under center? You get the safety coming from depth to be able to leverage the crosser. It's just really hard for the second level to do that consistently. And like Brooks and Barton have done that well before, but at a certain point you have to help them out. It's like, what purpose is Diggs really serving here, doubling the week 1, if you've already got, an outside quarter technique from the cornerback?
And we've seen Seattle struggle with this before. Okay, say if the backside receiver from the cover 2 side runs like this kind of route, we've seen the backside safety come off and then have to peel off late, and it's often been a bit late. Remember the Broncos hit this play. So it's just a beta that they haven't quite corrected yet. They might need a tool to correct it. Like maybe you have, off a play action look, you have Woolen in the cover 2 cloud, run with this, and then you like exchange him with Cody and have Cody play the flats to gain leverage. I don't
Yeah.
know. They'll probably have to come up with something because it's like a general beta, great beta from Shanahan. But what Griff was describing is if you see Ayuk here, so Brooks right now at the moment he realized it's boot. He did a pretty good job. It's just Ayuk's had what like a 10-yard head start on him to get moving, so
Yeah.
it's
No
very
reroute.
difficult for him. It's and then he's already in a head up position by the time Brooks has started transitioning. From Diggs's perspective, he could have looked backside, but he's just playing in this post window now to help out Mike Jackson. As Griff says, they've got this guy double teamed, but Ayuk is coming into this space. Nwosu's technically the quarter flat player, so a bit like a curl defender. He's just playing the boot rules. He's like taking first to the flat because he was down at the line of scrimmage anyway. Remember, as that kind of edge player. So he's just picking up George Kittle in a good manner. But yeah, it's a tough job for Brooks. Really, it's just a beater at this point. They don't have a tool for it. Brooks locates it, but that's an impossible task. Jackson comes down. At least they limit it to 16 yards. But yeah, good play. Something that their scheme they need to add a tool into because they keep getting worked by it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I guess we could come to another play action beta. If you're live, by the way, don't be afraid to ask questions because we don't want to lose you. If you're live, like enjoy the experience. Right. So then another explosive play, a big play was Tyler Croft's 28-yard catch at 7:28 in the fourth quarter, which was a 2nd and 6. This is really clever. So they start out in 22 personnel, and they've been running on Seattle. And obviously, as you've said, Seattle lost Al Woods. They just lacked mass in the middle with Brian Monet going out, and they were getting run on. Now Shanahan started in 22 personnel I form, and then he shifted Kyle Juszczyk up as like a wing. And what that did was it brought the cornerback into a conflict because, and we'll play it through first. Mike Jackson was bumped into having the force in the fit, whereas I don't necessarily think he would have done if it was 21 personnel. I think if it was 21 personnel, they'd have played it with a different type of force. But Jackson sucked up. I don't know if it was man to man or cover 3 because it's 22 personnel. It's kind of a weird coverage, but
I assumed
guess
it was cover
3.
3, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but
I mean, you get a certain defender in the fit. You get him as a run fitter, then you can play action that individual defender.
yeah, it's just a good play from Shanahan, and Seattle was getting a bit desperate here. But you see my point here when it was 22 personnel. Okay, they're kind of playing like they've got a gap, but like Muse is the backside turn back player. Cody's spilling through the B gap. It's just under fits basically. Neil can play off Nwosu, but he's like the front side turn back player. And Jackson is like he's got extra insurance, although he may still technically have this gap, but he's got extra insurance. But if you watch what happened after the shift, like the shift of Juszczyk to the wing, it brings Neil into the B gap basically, and then Jackson suddenly has much less protection. He's really coming down thinking run, and he just got sucked up, which they sold it well. Croft again, nice block and then release. Like Kittle did a great job on his little pump fake seam up the seam touchdown. So that's just what the 49ers do. They have their good plays, and you sort of got to
like even last year when they defended the 49ers well, they had the drift stock play where the fullback engages the block and then does the same thing off the linebacker.
Oh yeah, that was
and then
disgusting.
releases up the seam. It's like, how are you supposed to trust your keys on that? I mean,
Yeah.
Like even when Shanahan, his team doesn't have a good day, even when they lose, he still gets those plays on you. Like this is pure just manufactured the practice squad quarterback could get these kind of yards on you. Not making any comment about Purdy, but just saying like this is just pure Shanahan playing Madden right now.
Yeah. And
so, but the solution to this might be playing the now you don't install entire coverage for one play, right? But the solution to this is finding ways to take your cornerback out of the fit no matter the offensive formation. And last year they would play like inverted cover 6, right? So they'd play cover 6 to Mike Jackson's side, but Jackson would be or they would play the cover 2 side to Jackson's side, right? But Jackson would be the safety essentially, and then Neal would be the cloud corner or the buzz corner, because it's technically or not the buzz corner. He would be the flat defender essentially playing a cloud, but it would be for run purposes. But if they get play action, Jackson's there playing backstop. So
yeah, just playing cover 2 to this look that has its advantages, doesn't it, in general? And Seattle did play that, which we'll get to. So there is a positive on the play, which is that Diggs made the tackle. He didn't get cut back on. Croft is different to Kittle in that he's not as good, but Diggs see open field tracking, ball out, chops his feet, manages to get onto it. Right. Okay. So then also finally for this, we'll do McCaffrey's early carry. So there was like 2 big carries Seattle gave up. As I said with Ty, the second one, the 55-yarder to end the game, basically, that was just Seattle going after something. Tanner Muse is in, and he did fine, but like they were going after something with the pressure, and they just got a good play call and good execution. The game was kind of done anyway at that point. This was a bit more worrying, but again, it's clever from Shanahan. And it's sort of Seattle, I think, getting used to their game plan, which you say, why do they need to get used to it? Well, they did. So they started out in this look where it didn't really make sense to me at first. It was a 2nd and 1, 50-ish left in the first quarter, so fairly early in the game, and Seattle been playing well up to that point. It's this underlook again. So Seattle has Nwosu as the kind of 5 technique player. They have, Nwosu is the kind of Sam player. Ford as the 5 technique in the C gap. Monet shaded strong as a nose tackle in the strong A gap. Shelby Harris weak as the 3 technique, and then Bruce Irvin as the what would have been the Leo, right? He's the guy, the edge to the 3 tech.
Yep.
Then behind that, they play it almost like under 1Y, but they strong rotate cover 3 or cover 1 with Neal down to the slot. Then Brooks in the B gap, Cody in the A gap, right? So they're gapped out for what is like a 1 gap presentation. Mm-hmm. What Shanahan did, which was clever, is rather than sitting that, he shifted the formation into a slot formation. You can see Cody wants to bump out with it, which is fine. He should no longer be in the fit, because what should have happened, if Cody's going to come out here with that and help cover down to this stack receivers, Brooks needs to bump his fit from this B gap into the weak A gap, and Ryan Neal needs to play, rather than in this gap here, he needs to kind of bump in and play in the B gap. But he stayed ultra wide, and I don't know if he was in man coverage and that's why he did it, but I mean, he wasn't in man coverage because Cody bumped out the receivers, so he was just fixated on the tight end. He didn't really need to be. You can also see if Neal had bumped into the B gap, how suddenly the corner gets involved a bit more, because you've only got Nwosu out there now to the pair tight end look. But anyway, so It's a bit weird looking.
So the front side is weird, and with Mona playing clearly aligned in the strong side A gap, he's playing kind of a heavy one, or at least a shoulder width apart, like his legs aren't staggered, kind of like in a frog squat almost. And he plays it with like a two gap technique, the way he engages the tackle. I
Yeah,
think it's intended for
he
Brooks to just fit off of him
he purposefully lags into the
to the weak
backfield.
A. So
It's
that,
almost like their early solution was for that to happen to a slot.
yeah, that makes sense. So to protect the weak side, get Brooks flowing. And so weak side, they are gapped out. They've got the weak A, the weak B, the weak C, and they've got Mona in the weak A, Shelby in the weak B, and Irvin in the weak C gap. The problem really, I think, is that on this play in particular, is that Shelby gets too vertical and then he's just washes himself out of the play. He's just gone. And now Mona gets moved way more than you want to. If Mona was a little more stout and doesn't get to, horizontally displaced as much, and if Harris can play flat down the line and squeeze the gap out, at minimum it's like a 3-4 yard gain, or at least it should be. Like to me, this is just a technique breakdown from individual defenders
I
that we
don't know
didn't
if
see a lot of this game.
I don't know if Harris was expecting Devon to go to his right rather than the left, because the way he gets so vertical doesn't make sense. Like,
Well,
or
so
if
I
he's weak
thought,
pass.
is he cheating the boot? Because the ball's on the hash, and so when the ball's on the hash, it's very common to boot to the field, right? The wide side to the right there.
Yeah.
So is he thinking my first step is going to get vertical so that I can help put stress on the quarterback to speed himself up if he boots. Also, I think that not underrated, but an element that I'm maybe not giving enough attention to is Trent Williams kind of plays this well. He kind of, I don't know if you call that holding, but he definitely gets his hand on behind his right shoulder.
Hey, O-line always hold. You know
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. And that kind of invites Harris to to come down. Now, if he's reading, his pressure key, right, or his secondary key, which would be Williams. Williams doesn't fire out of his stance necessarily like he's run blocking. He's kind of, well, he does, but he's kind of high.
He sets in a similar way to how he would for a bootleg.
Right. And I think Harris is going, okay, I know what this is.
Yeah.
And then he realizes it's too late.
Because how this should look if Harris wasn't sort of maybe cheating something else or anticipating something else is he should just take this back step and 6-inch power step right into this guard. And so if you play that through after that point, it actually looks more like he's right in that B gap and the cutback lane is less great. It's still difficult though against a weak wide zone play, but really with this guard so flat, like this, I think also that's part of the thing because the guard is so flat on the angle of departure. I think Harris maybe thinks if you're that flat, mate, and you're going to double team a shaded nose away, like maybe it is boot because that's a weird kind of run blocking move. But yeah, he just gets way too vertical, as you said, and it creates a seam of the defense. Like he's technically in the B gap, right? But the B gap is super wide. Like this is his gap, and he's technically in it just. But yeah, McCaffrey, it's a very easy decision for him. As soon as Brooks fires into the A, which is correct to do, then he can just cut back off the grain. And lucky, really, that this didn't go for more.
But yeah, on a positive note for this play, though, it's encouraging that the 49ers are presenting C and D gaps with their tight end, and Seattle is in a front that is conducive toward being sound for that. Like they're not just staying, like they're in an underfront. They're in an underfront. They have a body in the C gap, and that's just like I wouldn't have said, oh, they should have been in this or they should have been in that here. Like this is what they did last year, and it worked. The difference is they don't have Al Woods here up front.
But on that point, like Al Woods wasn't there, but Puna Ford, Miles Adams, they played great as the 5 tech type.
Yeah.
is actually really encouraging, and I hope it opens their mind a bit to like, hey, if we're playing with a 5 tech rather than a 4 tech, like we can use a lot of these body types. So that's the negatives out of the way. We promised there were positives, so let's address some of those. So firstly, here's what they should have done. So they got this tough play that we've just talked about, and then they kind of adjusted their way through things. As I
what is the timestamp on that one?
9:41. 9:41. If you have this mysterious file, if you don't have the file, it is 13:21 left in the second quarter. So you can see the 49ers again came out in this trips formation, single back. It's more of a bunch set, but Seattle again started with Neal down to it, and they're in the under front again. This time Miles Adams playing the 5 tech, Nwosu playing down again, Puna Ford this time playing the shaded nose because Monet got hurt. Harris again at the 3 tech, and Boye Mafe is the kind of Leo type, the defensive end away. Not that they used the word Leo, sorry, that's confusing. Okay, so they shift, and rather than have the linebackers bump out with it, Neal just follows it, and the linebackers even switch around, the inside linebackers. So they reset the strong side almost, but it's not that deep. It's just keeping Brooks in a B gap, basically. In the A gap. Anyway, so because they did that, the second level was in a much better position. You can also see how the corner is more run involved, which did to the pair side, but the creation of the slot didn't flummox them, and then the fit is really nice, particularly from Miles Adams. Now it went a bit further than it should have. Like Adams could have done with tackling a bit lower. You can see here's this underlook. Shift to the slot, Neal following across, and everyone just gets smack back at the line of scrimmage. It's not running to the same side, it's running to the side away from the tight ends, what we call the open side or the flex side. But rather than the last run was running to the solid side or the tight end side. But still, this is like a nice play from Seattle, where everyone kind of wins, even though it does go for some yards and it is 2nd and 1, but like it's a better adjustment. And what is it, like 3 yards it gets?
I think it's 5 actually, because
that's crazy.
The tackling gets really poor at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, point taken there, because they're just more sound for it. It's they don't have a Shelby Harris rep on that play. And Shelby also did find this game outside of that and one other play from memory.
He did. And yeah, the big thing here is how much knockback they get front side, like from their D line. So Shelby absolutely stones his guard. And then, oh my word, and then Shelby stones his guard to the front side, and then Brooks is showing up big in his A gap. Puna's doing the right job. They're running the play to cut back anyway, but Miles Adams as well, he's getting nice knockback on Kittle, and he manages to get from his initial C gap technically into the D gap to meet McCaffrey. Now he just needed to actually try and get a bit of a better wrap. Obviously it's difficult, but yeah, they do a good job here, even though it went 5 yards. But the point being, Seattle had a schematic adjustment, or maybe they just got things right the second time. But like, remember Griff's figures on the overall run game, just in general.
Yeah, I mean the success rate again, like a majority of these runs, they were game for, they were ready for. Most of them went, under 4 yards. So, and again, you can make that comment for just about any offense. But the rate at which they went under 4 yards was still, what it was. So they had like, the 49ers had the the 24th highest success rate for that week, that game. So,
okay, so another good run fit is 600 in the file if you have that, and then 455 in the first quarter, roughly. First and 10. If you want to talk us through this one.
yeah, this is a good run fit against counter runs. So you got two pullers coming from the weak side, or no, coming from the strong side. Sorry, toward the weak side. The front they're in. This is so the front they're in first and foremost. They're once again in that under front. Miles Adams playing a 5 technique, Puna Ford a 1 technique, Shelby Harris the week 3 technique, and Irvin is kind of your Leo equivalent. And they're gapped out. They've got Quandre Diggs in the box this time, so they've got weak rotate or flex rotation. But the reason why they defend this well is, well, I would actually say part of this is that Kyle Shanahan, it wasn't Kyle Shanahan's best play call. Because they're getting two pullers to the weak side, and they have technically a C gap bubble, but the player that forms the C gap on the weak side is a receiver, I think. And he's like flexed. He's not like in the core or like hand in the dirt and stuff. So Seattle's lever spill lever, or turn back, run through, turn back. So Quandre Diggs is technically your lever player. So if he gets a puller to the second level, he has to fit that with outside leverage. So engage the block with his inside half, keep his outside half free. Barton would have to hit the inside of that puller, and then Brooks would have the run through on the like the front side A gap, I think, like the backside run through as the backside lever.
Yeah,
So
fitting in next available.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's great about this is that the reason why it works is, well, first, Irvin spills the kick out block from the
Yeah, and this is a big thing. They only seem to do this when they can see two pullers, but Irvin in particular is very good at it. Like a Mafe won't do this, but Nwosu Irvin will.
right. So Irvin gets contact on two guys essentially from this. That's why spilling counter can be so beneficial, even though he gets moved. That second puller through can't contact any of the linebackers from it.
Yeah, I think he ends up making the tackle as well,
Yeah, he might.
Kind of a beast play.
He might. And so normally 15, he's got to find Cody. He messes up looking for Diggs, I think. He needs to find Barton, but he doesn't. And Diggs does a good job to kind of allay the block anyway. So they're both leveraged to be free hitters. That lead has to end up hitting Cody, then that frees Irvin late at the end there. But so it's all about making a gap run work, or defending a gap run. A two-puller gap run is all about keeping the way Seattle organizes themselves, that second in the fit, second level defender. So Diggs is first in the fit toward the play side. Barton is second in the fit. And so often it's Barton's guy that gets climbed on, but he's free here. And that's essentially why it's effective, because they've got a guy clean. And Harris holds up as well as he needs to keep the tackle on him, because if the tackle would then be, often the tackle likes to down block and then climb if he can on the near 3 technique, and he's not really able to do that.
Yeah.
And so Harris is satisfactory here, and they're sound. The run doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. So just illustrating Griff's point from the end zone angle, here comes this first puller. And then this guy's going to come along as well. So the backside guard and like the backside U, which is juice check off the line of scrimmage. And Irvin, as soon as the receiver leaves him alone, and as soon as this tackle doubles Shelby Harris, Irvin knows he needs to kind of tighten down, because he's thinking like power counter gap scheme if you're unblocked. And yeah, you can see how he just spills the football, takes 2 for the price of 1 basically here, by giving up taking it on with like wrong arm, like his outside shoulder dipping in to the blocks. And he's like a disruptive menace. He ends up joining the hit because he's just not meant to make this play. Here's Quandre Diggs on the second level as the frontside turnback player. He is kind of slow playing this because his strength right now is not going to be his his strength. His strength is like his agility. He's not like a big box hitter, and he knows probably that this receiver is coming towards him, and so he's probably aware of what run type it is. He knows he can beat this block, which he does. Gets over the top of it, so he's still got outside leverage on this fullback block. And here's Barton coming underneath as the run through, taking on, and it's just a mess at the line of scrimmage. A great run fit, and this is kind of like they didn't run this play again, especially out this look, but this is indicative of the whole run defense where everyone's on the same page, everyone's staying and playing. Nice bend the knee job from Shelby against the double, and yeah, it's a great run fit. Like that's the stuff that we get excited about, and it has been lacking in past weeks. It does help that they're in under with flex rotation, their old defense, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
yeah, really, it felt like they had the formula of this game. They just needed to be at full strength and not have the usual Shanahan, designer stuff hit them.
Yeah.
The way that it did.
What didn't help them, obviously, was Quandre Diggs' dropped pick, which was nice coverage. So it's 3rd and 11 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Because it's 3rd and 11, Seattle runs a double A gap front. The idea being it can dictate protection. You're probably going to get big on big. It depends, but Seattle does get big on big here. Basically, getting everyone else one-on-one on the line because the center's wasted for a minute. Although I think San Francisco kept guys in. Now, on the back end, they were playing cover 8. So Mike Jackson to the strong side, the 3 receiver side of the empty set. He's in the cloud of cover 2. Then we have Tease Tabor. He's in a deep half over the top of him. We have Kobe Bryant, who's in like this vertical hook or vertical curl where he might match the 2 down the field, but to bunch, he might play it more like a zone. Then we have Tariq Woolen, who's this side, playing a deep quarter. And then we have Diggs playing a deep quarter. Now, I don't know if this was the tricks adjustment where Diggs eyes the 3 receiver up, or if he's just reading the eyes and his 2 stayed in chipping Taylor, I think. So I couldn't really get a read on that. I don't know if he was just playing it just from the eyes. I think that is what he's doing because he starts with this little pedal here. Purdy looks to the other side of Diggs, and Diggs is able to come onto the football. And I mean, he knows he should have caught the ball, but it's really great coverage from Diggs up until that point.
Yeah.
You can see Kobe Bryant lets his 2 run because he is playing like a zone kind of deal. He's underneath it.
I thought Bryant's drop was really good because he knew he had help over the top. He knew he could undercut. So I think his drop was pretty optimal, knowing that Diggs would now Diggs still undercuts it because he's just reading the play. He's just being a natural player.
But this might be tricks actually, which is just where the backside quarter safety looks to the 3 receiver.
And because later on this game we see Kobe turn and run with 2 vertical.
Yeah.
So here he doesn't, and you can see how the technique changes. He's just getting depth and eyes on the quarterback. So they have really good layers here. If the ball goes deeper, Diggs will probably stay higher on it, and Kobe can just keep running effectively and undercut if necessary. So
yeah, what Diggs is really good at is so quarterbacks will look at the backside safety for a coverage indicator, and Diggs lies to quarterbacks a lot. So like if you watch him in the first steps of his drop, rather than like drop down the hash or drop down this, drop straight backwards or even drop slightly to his inside, his first steps are to the outside. sort of back here, which when a quarterback sees that, he'll think, okay, well, I can access this middle of the field window. This guy's not going to be looking to my back, this kind of receiver over here. He's going to be looking to sort of double my isolated receiver on the other side of the field. But what actually happens, obviously, is Diggs lied to Purdy. You can see he takes these steps to the outside. Then as Purdy looks there, he then works back to the over the middle. Now this is a really bad throw. Like, this is awful. Like, Purdy is not good. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs. Famous last words, but like, you can't overcome that against playoff defenses. There's just no, you can't.
Yeah.
Now Shanahan's good at scheming, but we'll see. And you can see it from the end zone angle. This is a good illustration of what Purdy tried to do. He did his little hop, which all quarterbacks do when they think they've thrown a pick. Look, he checked Diggs, and Diggs stayed here and slightly outside, and then he continued his drop before almost throwing it to him. I mean, that's just abysmal. But anyway, I'm sure I couldn't play in the NFL.
Well, and you see Diggs adjust his angle on the receiver when he sees the ball's underthrown. You see him adapt his route.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he bends it down. So
nice undercut. Oh, so that would have been big if they'd caught that, but a good play still, even though they didn't.
There was still in the drop back game, there was a lot of sound coverage, like pure drop back. Like, just play your rules, relate to the formation, get to your depth, all that stuff. Like, I mean, they kind of had the same degree of cohesion that they kind of had that month in the middle of the season where they were playing well across the board. What hurt them in the passing game really was just the Shanahan stuff that hurts you. And then maybe, Mike Jackson losing a couple of one-on-ones. And then other than that, they didn't really get much. And those were tough covers for Mike Jackson, tightly contested still, but like, we're talking like 4 or 5 slant routes. Other than that, I don't think they had anything.
So this 2nd and 9 with 1:58 left in the first quarter, that's a good illustration of what Griff was saying about drop back passing. So Seattle is in, because it's 2x2, you can sort of disagree on whether it's cover 8 or cover 6, but they don't really run cover 8 out of base, so it's cover 6 basically. So here's Mike Jackson. He's in the deep quarter at the bottom of the screen. Here's Condre Diggs. He's in the deep quarter. Here's Darrell Taylor. He is a quarter flat defender in the coverage. There's some cool things going on up front that we'll get to. Here's Ryan Neal. He's the deep half in the cover 2 side. Here's Tariq Woolen. He's the cloud corner in the cover 2 side. And then Brooks is a middle hook. Barton's like a vertical curl player.
Yep.
So if we just play through, we'll talk about the front when we get to the end zone angle. But if we play through the coverage, they push 3 out. McCaffrey out the backfield, so they put 3 into the boundary, which is a nice beater for teams. Here's Cody taking a great vertical curl drop to the seam tight end, like superb coverage, blanketed. I believe Woolen is in a high-low conflict with McCaffrey out of the backfield, but I believe he flips his hips if with Juice checks his seam or vertical wheel out of the backfield if Purdy's looking that way. Like he plays that.
Mm-hmm. You also see Brooks opening, almost keeping eyes on the quarterback, but opening his hips toward the boundary because he's got 2 receivers up and then the running back to the flat. So that's a big time, dagger combination threat, especially with the condensed splits with the 2 tight ends there. So, or is that juice check, whatever, same thing. So that's just him being alert to, of like, okay, they could be setting an in breaker. So he's getting to depth and getting width, the appropriate width for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he started like on almost like the left hash almost, and he's pushing to beyond the right hash to get into the dig window for the receivers if this guy came across and this guy
And
ran off.
that principle shows back up um, later in the game with another drop from Jordan pushing from the boundary hash to the field hash, I think.
Yeah,
Um, what was that timestamp? Is that 1640?
maybe. So now for where the ball went. So the ball actually Purdy went for the cover four side. Um, I think they just thought Darrell Taylor's in coverage. We'll just go after him. He got a nice reroute. Like the offense will take this. This is kind of what they but they're also banking on Ayuk. Is that Ayuk breaking the tackle of Taylor? And Taylor
Yeah.
kept up, made the tackle. That's
I
his
mean,
job.
that's a good play from Taylor, I think.
Yeah, this is an example of good defense. Like the offense can get 5 yards again, and it's good defense.
Right.
Um, so talking about the front, so a big thing in this game for Seattle was playing. It basically was like bumped bear, but for the purposes of this, it's almost like their old reduced over front. So they have the cornerback to like pair tight ends. He would be in the kind of E gap, but he's like the force player. Then they have the outside linebacker outside the first tight end as like a C gap player. Oh, sorry, a D gap player.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had a three technique in a B gap, a shaded nose tackle away from him. So it's looking like reduced over. And then because there's a four eye technique in the weak B gap. Now, away from the four eye technique is, as we know, Darrell Taylor, who's covering down on the slot, which is why it's kind of like bumped bear. It's like bear, but shaded to accommodate for um, you cover four player away, and then using the cover two cornerback on the other side as the force player to help make the other stuff work. But it's really cool because there's no bubbles to the defense. Well, there's an A gap and a C gap, but you're protecting certain players in better ways. And we were asking for this look. This is something that they used under Ken Norton last year as the season went on, and they ran more like core scored half defense, and they needed ways to deal with like pair tight end looks.
Mm-hmm. So it's fitting the coverage and then sound run defense together.
Yeah.
Now, then the one inherent drawback to doing that is when you manage the front to have good too high coverage is that you're probably not putting your defensive lineman at the best angles for pass rush purposes.
Mm.
And that's where, in a perfect world, you just have an elite player who can get pass rush from any alignment. Like ultimate front versatility. And that's essentially what a guy like Jalen Carter gets you.
Mm.
Just throwing that out there.
That's a big tease.
Yeah.
Right. Where do we go from here, Griff?
Well, I don't know. We can maybe look at one more play, just kind of a good illustration of them just playing really sound in their coverage and their cover six. I think this play at 8:30 in the file.
3rd and 16, 51 seconds left in the first quarter.
Yeah. I think it's just a good example of them just playing their coverage rules against like pure drop back, more standard plays that they're going to see. So it's cover two.
Yeah.
It's 3rd and 16, so they can give depth on the check down, right? But yeah, so to the wide side of the field, Tariq's side, it's cover two. He's a cloud corner, flat defender. You got Kobe Bryant. He man turns with the seam, playing like the true vertical hook, right? So not a zone technique, but a man technique within a zone call. So you get double coverage on the fade between Tease Tabor and Woolen on the fade from the number one receiver. Kobe Bryant is in a way closing off the middle of the field by carrying the number 2. And then Brooks is playing a middle hook. We'll get to that in a bit. But then Quandre Diggs is playing a weak side quarter. So he can help close off the middle of the field. But because Kobe's carrying it, that means he can kind of give help on the weak number 1 and nail down on dig routes and stuff from Mike Jackson's man. Because Jackson's in a quarter, which kind of is more man-esque than not. But yeah, so go ahead and roll the tape whenever you're ready. And then Neil would be your quarter flat defender. So I thought Brooks did a really good job matching depth to deny the immediate crossing route window from Ayuk, I think. But he does a good job of doing that while simultaneously pushing to the field hash to play inbreakers if they get a dagger combination. Because 2 on the ball, 1 off to that stack formation, the receivers, that's a pretty big dagger indicator.
Yeah.
And of course, Kobe is carrying the seam. So that means Jordan would have to play the inbreak of 1. So he's reading quarterback eyes. So really, Jordan is managing 2 major threats right here. And he also plays in the second window Ayuk's over route, where it would hit between the hash of the numbers. He's playing that kind of like as a liaison all the way to Tariq Woolen's jurisdiction as the flat defender, the high flat defender, really. So I feel like this is just really good. I mean, good match from Kobe, and then really good zone eyes and zone dropping. The kind of stuff that Brooks does, snap in, snap out against drop back coverages. The stuff that, I don't know, maybe doesn't get picked up by grading platforms out there, grading systems out there. But like it's the coverage is shutting down the core intent of the concept that Shanahan threw out there. So
yeah, I love what
yeah.
you said about him visioning the quarterback, because he cleared the dagger threat. He can kind of space that out a bit, pace that out. But then because he's got eyes on the quarterback, he's still getting depth. He's gained the right kind of leverage width-wise as well. As when the quarterback looks at him, he then knows, oh, there might be something coming the other way here. And he has a look and he finds it and gets under it. And that immediately, as soon as Purdy sees that happen, he's like, well, I'm checking this ball down.
Because, I mean, if you want to test fate and throw the Ayuk in the second window, Tyreek's reaction time and length and speed, that's a pick. Like, Jordan's covered that as long as he needs to. Now it's Woolen getting a pick on you.
Yeah. It's all about the window. He's just taken the window away.
Right.
There's no margin for that.
Yeah. And then from there, I mean, yeah, they tackle the check down, but look at what Shelby Harris does on this play. He's been getting into the backfield all year. I mean, he's a pass rusher, and I think he has a $9 million cap hit next year. They can't pay him that, but if they can cut him and bring him back for I would throw him 2 years, 10 million, see if he takes it. Because in a perfect world, they can roll into next year with him being your 4th best defensive interior defender. And I would feel pretty good about that, because there's still 400 snaps to be had there.
Yeah, this is nice. This is a tackle game. The center slides away from Shelby, so he's one-on-one with his guard, but he's still on the tackle game where he's going inside, and he just demolishes this guy to the inside. The other guy is the other 3 technique on the play. Quentin Jefferson, who's basically looping around, crossing the face of the center, but this is really nice from Shelby. And that's the thing as well. Purdy might have tested that downfield window if Shelby doesn't get the rush, but this is just forcing the ball out. This is what we say when you have a pass rush. It means that the coverage timing works. Okay, they sunk deep, so then they have to get the ball out. This, if you could get this a bit more reliably, and Shelby has been good, but from a few more players, then suddenly it changes your coverage. You can rally to the check down even quicker. You can know that the check down is going to be thrown at a certain point. This is 4-man rush getting there.
Yeah. I mean, to me, a guy like Shelby is he's the floor of your pass rush. You need someone on the line, whether a tackle or an end or an edge, to be a blue chipper to define your ceiling. But elite pass rushes have your third best pass rusher is an impact player. You can't have an elite pass rush without having more than one guy doing it, you know? So to me, they have their floor. They just need to add a guy. To me, it's not about replacing; it's about adding. I'm not in a rush to replace a lot of these guys.
No, which is weird because there's all this talk about like Seattle doesn't have the right personnel. Like they do. I just don't think.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd more be inclined to say that they didn't quite get the coaching right than that the personnel is to blame.
and it's definitely both. But if you're gonna put one in front of the other, I feel like it's definitely been coaching has been a little bit too, chasing their tail a little bit with what they're trying to be. The efforts at making the front more aggressive, the benefits that they got there were so marginal, and especially compared to what the deficit that put them at in defending the run, it's like the trade-off wasn't there. I mean, you arguably didn't see the benefits at all, and even if you did, they're still outweighed by the drawbacks. So, and that's why they've been hunkering down and playing more gapped out to get right and return to run oriented. But then now they're running into injuries, and that's further setting them back. Like again, the Panthers game, the first half, their early down stuff, they were shutting out the Panthers on early down, running what they wanted to be. Second half, lose Woods. Then they start doing funky things that they weren't doing in the first half schematically. And then it starts to fall apart. And you're just sitting there scratching your head like, why did this happen? Why did this need to happen? So
we've gone this long on the defense, Griff, and haven't spoke about the offense. But I guess we'll speak about the offense after Kansas City. Make a Christmas promise to people.
Yeah, Christmas promise.
HB comments Kelsey about to have a legacy game. Don't forget, Pete Carroll shut down Travis Kelsey with Akeem King in 2018, so I'm sure they'll have a plan.
Remember how excited we were with Akeem King for a while there?
Yeah.
And then he was just unfortunately nothing after that.
Yeah. Earlier we had Vince W ask a quick question. If they had Dunlap this year when in nickel, would they be better against the run? What if they kept Jaron Reed? Thanks, guys. Wow. Well, Dunlap would definitely have set an edge for them more, but
yeah.
And I think in Pete's mind there was like a situation where he would have wanted to keep him. If you remember how like he's tried to push back a bit on comments that he like about getting the number 8 jersey, Kobe Bryant, and then before that there was an incident as well where I think he was trying to work that out. So yeah, that would have helped, even though he is more of a base 4-3 end, but like he'd have been a situational player. Remember, he had time like trying to be sold on that, and it didn't work out in 2021. Although in Kansas City, and we'll see him this Saturday, he is more of a role player there, so he's sort of reluctantly accepted that's his fate now, I guess. And then Reed,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, Reed would help. Like
Reed would certainly help in that he would be taking Quentin Jefferson's snaps really in the early down,
and he's a better player, so
he's a better player. Especially he would help when Woods and Mona go down. But like they didn't have Reed last year, and they had better run defense last year than they did the year prior.
Yeah.
Actually, it was about equal. I was thinking 2019.
Yes.
But still, like, yeah, Reed would absolutely help. But also, that's not the reason why the run defense has fallen as far as it's fallen. So,
no. And yeah, Shelby Harris, as we've just said, is giving them some interior pass rush juice. The issues have been really with the pass rush. They haven't been in as much clear passing down situations. Like that pass rush we just talked about is 3rd and 16. So
right.
Okay. So Griff, this Kansas City game really quickly. Tyler Lockett's out with his hand injury. Safety Ryan Neal's out with a knee injury, and Alwood's out with an Achilles injury.
Not great.
No, so that's going to be the Tabor Abram kind of game, but like Tabor's a bit light, so you may want some more mass. So maybe Abram gets a start. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
So hopefully there's no like lack of communication, new to the defense, relatively busts, because that would be so frustrating. I was saying to Ty, I think yesterday, that it'd be typical if it feels like they've worked out the defense, other than a few errors, to 2-back offense and 21 personnel attacks. And then they go into Kansas City and they just melt down against spread stuff, which was what this defense initially was meant to kind of stop. But even though Kansas City is versatile and varied, and they do add a bit more heavier personnel than they used to in the past, and they have a run balance to them and run action. But like, I mean, I hope that the defense continues. Like, if we didn't, yeah,
it would be just their luck if when Kansas City's in gun, if they pull out the Byron Leftwich game plan, where they just do a bunch of stuff that they just don't normally do.
Yeah.
And Seattle comes out looking to match personnel and formation with personnel in front of their own.
And they just, that'd be awful. I wish you hadn't said that. Hopefully not. So if we look at the spread before and all that kind of fun stuff, before we pick it, the Chiefs are 10-point favorites. That's wild. The over under is 49. So where are we going with this, Griff? Why are you smiling?
You know what?
Why are you smiling?
Chiefs have a bad defense.
They do.
I say they keep it within 10 points. Chiefs win within 10 points. It will feel like a very winnable game in hindsight.
Yeah, you'll be frustrated. It's one of those.
We'll be frustrated.
I mean, I'm worried about the Seahawks offense at the moment, like the run game and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was really a really abysmal effort.
We really should have spoke about that, but we got so excited about like some good defensive play that we just did.
As good as the 49ers defense was, they made it too easy on them in the run game.
Some guy commented something about 31-7. That's my thing. Yeah, I think Seattle's going to win this game 31-7. That's my conclusion.
You'll be right eventually.
Will I though? I don't know. I just don't know how it keeps failing. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully they don't ruin Christmas. It's 10 a.m. for you guys, which is nuts. And for me, it's ruining my Christmas dinner because it's Christmas Eve dinner, which is 6 p.m.
I really want to know. I want to see this game. If we see a game plan that feels very specific and tailored,
I think we will. Pete comes with some juice for them.
It's going to be Pete's going to be inserting himself.
Well, also they have to win. So
right, this is a must-win game. This is a must-win game.
And I would say the San Francisco defensive plan, they did a lot, and it was good. Like, it was good stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think. All right, my bold prediction will be: we'll watch this game and win or lose, we'll not feel demoralized by the defensive scheme or, cohesion level, performance, execution. That doesn't mean Mahomes won't have his crazy stat line, but it will feel like
managed stat line, managed
right mitigation. Mahomes mitigation services.
Okay. Well, there we go. Enjoy the game. Like the video. If you're watching, please comment. We appreciate it. If you're listening, download 5-star review. Follow Twitter at Seattle Overload. Follow Griff at C Mike Spin Move. Follow me at Matty F Brown. Merry Christmas. We will see you before then live with a recap. There you go. Goodbye.